So, welcome back again to the second part of Come and See Inspirations. My name is John Keeley, still joined by Shane Ambrose. And it's a delight for us again to welcome back onto our podcast Jane Mellet, who's the church manager with Trocaire these days. Great to have you back, Jane. Thanks a lot indeed for joining us.
Thanks, John. Good to be here.
So, that time of the year again, but not just because that's time of the year. We'd like to speak with you anyway, Jane, but specifically now we want to speak about the Lenten Campaign. And I know there's a few people, I'd say most people at this stage know what Trocaire do, but just a one-liner, Jane. What work do you do?
So I suppose Trocaire is the International Development Agency of the Catholic Church in Ireland. So we're an agency of church, and we work in 14 countries overseas on a range of global justice issues such as climate justice, women's empowerment, humanitarian aid, and so forth. And each year we have a very strong Lenten campaign, which I'm happy to tell you all about.
Thanks a lot for that, Jane. Just looking at your website early on, there's a few things that hit me anyway. First was on the resources page, there's a parish resource, which maybe myself and Shane might chat about shortly, but there was one which I tapped into, the listening to nature. Tell us about that, Jane.
Yeah, so we have a second resource this Lent for parishes or for any groups that would like to use it, and it's a 4-session resource called Listening to Nature, and I suppose this is coming from our Laudato Si project of the last few years, inspired by Pope Francis's teaching on all things ecology and care for creation. That, we're trying to make the link between people's faith and working for our common home or for environmental justice. Like, what are those links and why should we do this? And I think Laudato Si expresses that beautifully, but I suppose this resource is an effort to help people reflect a little bit more deeply on that and on their own call to care for the earth more deeply. So the Listening to Nature resource, I suppose, invites people into 4 movements or 4 sessions where they have the opportunity to do that. And it's all about reconnecting with nature and hearing the song of creation, but also hearing creation's cry and maybe where we're being called to respond to that cry right now as Christians, as people of faith. So it's a beautiful resource. We're really proud of it. And we've modeled, I suppose, the movement on the movement that's been used for the synodal process.
Notice that.
So that's quite nice, and I think people are really going to find it quite nourishing, hopefully.
Well, I certainly did. Just when I was going through it, there was a nice little page there on Leonardo from La Paz community in Guatemala.
Yeah, so the La Paz community in Guatemala feature in this year's Lent campaign, and Leonardo is a spiritual leader in that community, and he's a really interesting character whom we interviewed for the purposes of the Lent campaign this year. He's a married man, he has 4 children, he's a farmer, he has a small farm or ranch where he keeps animals, chickens and so forth, and also grows crops. But the interesting thing I find about Leonardo is that he is very much a leader in the church community locally. So he's a catechist, and he's also very much embedded in his own traditional Mayan indigenous spirituality, and he holds both. So he's somebody who has a deep faith, but he also cares about the local Mayan traditions, and I suppose holds both, and both speak into his love for the earth and the care for the earth, and that comes across the church community where he is in ministry. Would not see a priest every week, so it could be months. So Leonardo would be somebody leading liturgy for the local community as well, in the absence of a priest. So he's a very interesting character, and he's someone who's very passionate about creation care and also his local community of La Paz.
And so this year, as you outlined early on, the resource, it has 4 stages: prayer, listening, consultation and discernment. I went through myself the prayer one, session one, the prayer. Would you go through with that with us? Because I thought it was lovely. I thought listeners would love to hear some of that stuff.
Yeah, so our church officer Anna Keegan wrote part of this resource and was very much the inspiration behind the resource. And um, she discovered this beautiful prayer, and it's called Prayer of the Seven Directions, and it's by a sister Jose Hobde, who's actually an elder of a Native American Seneca tribe, but she's also a Franciscan sister. So there again, you have these two beautiful spiritualities coming together. And what's really nice about this prayer is it's simply a prayer to the four directions, east, west, north, south. Um, but it's recognizing, I suppose, the elements of nature within the prayer and invites us to turn towards the north, the east, the south, the west, and, to greet the sun in the east, for example. As a sign of new beginnings, hope, promise, and potential. Um, when you turn to the south, it's the direction of warmth, growth, fertility, and so on. And acknowledging, the divine presence as we do this. So it's a nice prayer that involves a little bit of movement, but not too much movement. It involves praying with the body and also just trying to see our place in the world, I guess, and the different elements that are around us.
And speaks about listening.
Yeah, this was inspired by, if you've taken part in any of the synodal gatherings in the church of
Mm.
late, there is a process called conversation in the spirit,
Uh-huh.
which is a really useful tool for any conversation that you need to have.
Very useful.
And I think it's trying to teach us about respectful dialogue and all of those things. But um, there are some readings that are chosen from the scriptures, but also from Pope Francis's writing on the climate crisis, Laudate Deum and Laudato Si. And participants are basically invited into a conversation about these readings. So, we ask questions like, what comes to mind when you think of the environmental crisis?
Uh-huh.
And what do you notice happening to your local environment and the global environment? Um, but I suppose the tool in conversations in the spirit is to listen respectfully and to hear everyone's comments, and um, further on in the sessions then that would lead into some sort of discernment. In that second movement, there's also what we call Lectio Divina with nature, and this is about being able to listen to God's creation and to hear maybe a message from the creator in nature. So there's a process for that within that second session as well. So it's really interesting.
Very much so. You can learn so much if we listen, says you. Session 3 and Session 4, reflection and discernment. Again, the fruits of that listening, I assume?
Yeah, the fruits of the listening very much in section 3. I think section 4 are, what do we do with all of this now? Like, we hope that the previous sessions will have brought people on a journey. I know it's an overused word, but that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that they might be looking out at nature in a different way now, and to see that relationship rekindled in some way, and to hear and to see a bit differently. So what do we do with this? Well, we're asked to discern our place now. So where, what can I do in relation to this, or what is my relationship now to God's creation? Where am I being called to be? So we use this lovely examine exercise that's from
Mm-hmm.
Ignatian spirituality, and it's an ecological examine. So it's inviting us, like, in light of everything we've heard and reflected on over the previous weeks or previous sessions, and where we've been called to now. So there's another step-by-step process for that to happen. And again, evoking conversations in the spirit, listening to everybody and seeing, okay, what's next? What do we do now with this as a group? Or maybe we just want to sit with it and see what comes. And we have, at the final part of the resource, lots of top tips for hope in
I
action,
see that, yeah.
should people want to go in that direction.
And there's also another resource you've got available, some online workshops. Can you tell us about those?
So the session or the resource I've just described is actually going to also be available online over 4 weeks, beginning on the 19th of March. So the resource is free to download online if people would like to run it locally with the group or wherever they may be. But we're also going to run the sessions online so that people have a first-hand experience of it. So there's a lot of interest in this, which is great. And they begin on the evening of the 19th of March. And if anyone would like to sign up for those 4 sessions, you can contact us. You can email Anna Keegan actually at Trocaire. So it's anna.keegan@trocaire.org. And you'll be given instructions to sign up. So 4 sessions, 7:30 p.m. starting on the 19th of March. And if people would like to try out that resource and see what comes, I think it'll be super interesting.
Great. And following that as well, you've also got Shine Parish Resources, is that right?
Yeah, so this is our regular annual parish resource, which is, I suppose, more akin to a liturgical resource for parishes. So this is where we have the 5, 6 weeks of Lent, and we have homily notes, prayers, inserts for newsletters. But also this year, because it's the Jubilee Year of Hope, and it's also the 10th anniversary of Laudato Si, we have 2 reflections for each week on those. So we've asked different people each week to give their reflections on Laudato Si. So you have people like Professor John Sweeney, who's given a reflection one of the weeks, Sylvia Thompson another week, and it's basically asking them to say, well, what does Laudato Si mean to you on its 10th anniversary? And we're hoping that people might put those in newsletters as well, because it'll just give a nice reflection. And we have some excellent homily notes for parishes that are written by Mary Kirk. And then, as well as all of that, at the back of the resource, we've included 52 Laudato Si quotes, one for every week of a year. And to mark the 10th anniversary, we're hoping that parishes might take one quote per week and put it in the newsletter so that everyone gets to read a chunk of Laudato Si this year.
So, Shane, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I was just looking as well. Now, just to point out just other things that link in with that. The annual St. Patrick's College annual Lent lecture, St. Patrick's College Maynooth annual Lent lecture, I beg your pardon, is on March the 11th. And it's Dr. Anna Rowlands, who's the professor of Catholic Social Thought at Durham University, who's going to be delivering it. And it's A Politics of Hope and Catholic Social Teaching as a Guiding Light, which I thought was an interesting, I have to say that the title enough would be something interesting given the world we're in at the moment in terms of looking for hope as well. The parish resources are always interesting. Now, obviously, as Jane said, a lot of them are focused on things which could be used, newsletters, homily notes, and things like that. But just, for people that, they may not be used in a parish context, but they're also there as a resource for people who might just want something else just to read up on as well during the Lent season. Because to be honest, it varies hugely across parishes how they're used, but they are there. And as you said, the 52 quotes, I like that idea actually. The 52 quotes from Laudato Si, breaking it down, is a good way to make it a digestible chunk.
Yeah.
In terms of it. I suppose the other thing then, Jane, I suppose the traditional question for the Lenten campaign, of course, for Trocaire is, of course, the owl, the great institution that is the Trocaire boxes, the Lenten boxes. Now, for those of our listeners that are not Irish, the Trocaire boxes are an institution. They are 52 years old this year.
Yep. Something like that.
52 years old. Okay. So these are boxes with the resources, with some of the resources for Lent that are distributed across schools and parishes across the country, with the idea of course, encouraging people as part of Lenten tradition and giving and so forth to support the Trocaire's work in development and development education. And they are, who's on the box this year, Jane? It's always kind of a question.
Yeah, so on the box this year we have a family from the La Paz community. So you will meet Julio and Ilma, and their lovely children from Guatemala, and we share their story. They are farmers and they've been hugely affected by climate change. So this is the story we're sharing on the box. And it's hitting on issues around access to education, as well as disaster responses and disaster risk reduction and all of those things that are affecting Guatemala through extreme weather events and climate injustice. So that's the family on the box this year. And I think people will really be warm to the family when you see the photograph and to their story, which accompanies the box.
Very good, very good. And like we said, it is an institution, and but it's a great way of, particularly for families and for the children, to get involved with the Lenten campaign. And yeah, as I said, it surprises you, even for people that shall I say, wouldn't necessarily be in the way of religion. The Lenten campaign, the Trocaire box, it does trigger many a conversation, and it is, as I said, it's one of those institutions in Irish culture that still resonates down to the present time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely institution is the word for it. I think yeah, it's iconic.
And there's just one more section there that I think is worth people maybe taking a look at when they do go onto the Trocaire website, and that's the news section. And I just took a look at one there. There's a nice little story there. I'm going to get this pronunciation wrong, but a Morticana Aero from southern Ethiopia. And she told, her quote was, "I think that our future is certainly brighter now." And she told us a story to you guys of having to walk up to 6 hours a day, as well as do all the other chores in terms of taking care of children, etc., etc., etc. She used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and didn't get to bed till midnight. But now, because of the work that people of Trocaire done through the support from people in Ireland and people elsewhere, she's now able at least to be able to get to bed a little bit earlier and get up a little bit later. So I think it's well worth just people going on and hearing the good news.
Oh, absolutely. And, we will be traveling around the country to parishes during the next few weeks, sharing on this campaign at masses and in different settings, and providing updates on, last year's family from Malawi, what has happened in that community since we met them a year ago. And I think, that story of agency and development is so important because like the tagline we use is, it's not just a box, it's a lifeline, but it's so
Yes,
true. Like
so true.
and that's not a cliche. You really see the impact on the ground when you realize that this money is going to the poorest communities in the world. And if we install a water pump or whatever it might be, that transforms the lives of that entire community. It means that they don't have to spend 8 hours of their day fetching water. It means that education is more accessible, and that transforms everything. So, the story you mentioned there was from Ethiopia, but I mean, we see this across many of our country programs. Yeah.
As Shane just alluded to there are a number of our listeners, a lot of our listeners who listen to us outside of Ireland. If they just on listening to this, if they want to maybe tap in and maybe donate something or help in some way to Trocaire, how can they do it?
Well, you can pick up a Trocaire box from your local parish, or you may come across them through schools as well. However, we realise that the majority of people these days are not carrying cash to put into Trocaire boxes. So the easiest way to donate is to go directly to our website, trocaire.org, and you will see from next week onwards the Lent campaign on the homepage, and you can donate straight from there. There's also on the boxes, if you see a giant box in your church or even the small ones, there is a QR code. For those who are familiar with using QR codes, you can scan that and it will bring you to the same space.
Just one last reminder, if somebody was interested in taking part in that online workshop, how did they do that again?
So you can email anna.keegan@trocaire.org.
Okay, lovely. Jane, thanks a lot indeed for explaining to us and sharing with us, as usual, very comprehensively. If you got a piece of music you'd like us to go to?
This is an old one, but as we were talking earlier, it came to mind. It's called God of Justice by Tim Hughes.
Perfect job. Jane, we'll talk to you again, and thanks a lot indeed for sharing with us.
Thanks so much.
Bye now.
Justice, Savior to all, came to rescue the weak and the poor, chose to serve and that we served. Jesus, you have called us free. Beside the